The sheriff's boots crunched across my gravel like he was walking on eggshells somebody else had already smashed. He handed me an envelope thicker than my divorce papers and said, "Mr. Brooks, you've been served." I blinked at the bold black letters. Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association versus Ethan Brooks. Injunctive relief and damages in the amount of $65,000. 65 grand. For solar panels I'd installed on my own 5-acre patch of dirt 3 years before their vinyl-sided nightmare even broke ground. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. Right there in my muddy boots while the goats bleated like they were in on the joke. The sheriff just shrugged. "They've been suing everybody lately. Good luck, man." He drove off, dust swirling behind him like the HOA's bad decisions. I flipped open the complaint and there it was in black and white. My solar array was an unapproved architectural modification obstructing the community's visual harmony from the common area viewing corridor. Viewing corridor. They'd invented a whole new zip code for my property, just so they could find me into oblivion. I'd lived here 10 years before anyone called this place Oak Ridge Estates. Back then it was just fields, crickets, and the occasional coyote. I bought it cheap after the plant laid me off. Quiet engineer turned solar evangelist. Pulled every permit, passed every inspection, even got the county rebate. The panels hummed along, cutting my electric bill to almost nothing while the subdivision sprouted behind my back fence like a beige fungus. Matching mailboxes, matching lawns, matching souls. And now their fearless leader, Pamela Ellison, President Pam to the peasants, had decided my sun-powered freedom was a crime against humanity. The first letter had arrived 2 months earlier, slipped under my gate like a bad Yelp review. Fancy letterhead, gold embossed, the works. Notice of violation, it read. Solar installation visible from common area. Fines commence at $100 per day until cured. I called the management company that same afternoon. The woman on the phone sounded like she'd been trained to smile while stabbing you. "Our records show your parcel falls within the extended aesthetic zone, Mr. Brooks." Extended aesthetic zone. I swear I heard her nails clicking on a keyboard like tiny claws. "You can always appeal to the Architectural Review Committee," she cooed. "But fines will continue to accrue." I hung up, printed my deed, my permits, my county approval letter, and mailed it back with a polite note. "I'm not in your HOA, fix your map." 2 weeks later the second envelope showed up, certified return receipt, the full Karen starter pack. Late fees added. Tone nastier. Continued non-compliance will result in legal escalation. Attached were photos of my barn roof taken from an angle that could only mean someone had hopped my fence. I felt the heat crawl up my neck, the kind that has nothing to do with Texas sun. I wrote back firmer. "Stay off my property. Any further contact will be reported as harassment." That's when President Pam herself decided to grace me with her presence. I was stacking feed sacks when her voice floated over the fence like perfume at a funeral. "Mr. Brooks? Pamela Ellison, Oak Ridge Estates HOA president. I thought we could chat neighbor to neighbor." She wore a pastel polo with the HOA logo, khakis pressed sharper than her lies, clipboard clutched like a shield. I wiped my hands and walked over. "Neighbor? Last I checked, my deed stops at that fence line." She smiled the smile of someone who'd practiced it in the mirror until it looked sincere. "Technically, the community boundary was adjusted last year to include the visual corridor for aesthetic consistency. Your panels are visible from our pocket park. We just want everyone to enjoy the same harmonious vista." I stared at her. Harmonious vista. My goats don't vote on vistas, Pam. And my panels aren't in your pocket park, they're on my roof. She tilted her head like I was the unreasonable one. "It's not personal, Ethan. Noncompliance drives property values down. Think of the children." The children. Black humor hit me hard. Imagine telling your kid the solar panels next door are why mommy can't afford the new SUV. I kept my voice level. "Pam, step off my property. Next time I see a camera or a clipboard on this side of the fence, I'm calling the sheriff." Her smile never wavered, but her eyes went flat. "We'll let our attorneys handle it then. Shame it had to come to this." She turned and walked away like a queen who just sentenced a peasant. I thought that would be the end. I was wrong. 2 weeks later the process server showed up. Same thick envelope. Same $65,000 demand. This time they'd attached a map, hand-drawn of course, where their extended corridor swallowed half my acreage like a beige amoeba. My wife Sarah read it over my shoulder and whispered, "They're serious." I nodded, feeling the cold settle in my gut. Ignoring them hadn't worked. Polite letters hadn't worked. Now they were in my kitchen, on my table, in my life. That night I sat on the porch watching the panels drink moonlight and made a decision. I wasn't going to rip out a single screw, but I was going to make them regret ever learning my name. I started documenting everything, every letter, every photo, every timestamp. I labeled the folder evidence of their insanity. Then I Googled Land Use Attorney Texas and found Marcus Rivera, a guy who'd spent 20 years making HOAs cry in court. I called him at 8:01 the next morning. "Mr. Brooks," he said, voice calm as courthouse marble. "They don't have jurisdiction, but they're betting you'll fold before you prove it." He asked for everything. I overnight the folder. By evening he called back. "This is textbook overreach. We're filing a motion to dismiss tomorrow and slapping them with an anti-slap notice. They want war? Let's give them receipts." The first court filing felt like flipping the bird in slow motion. Marcus's letter to their attorney was beautiful, cold, professional, and dripping with legal venom. "Our client is not and has never been a member of your association. Any continued enforcement constitutes harassment, trespass, and potential fraud." He CC'd the county recorder, the State Consumer Protection Office, and their insurance carrier for good measure. I printed it, highlighted the good parts, and tacked it to my barn wall like a trophy. But Pam wasn't done flexing. 3 days later my inbox pinged with a new exhibit from their side, more photos. One shot showed the inside of my barn, workbench, calendar, even the sticky note with Sarah's doctor appointment. Someone had been inside. The door I sometimes left cracked for the cats. My stomach turned to ice. This wasn't about solar panels anymore. This was about control. And President Pam had just crossed the line from annoying to criminal. I called Marcus at dawn. They were inside my barn. He didn't sound surprised. Lawyers like him had seen every flavor of crazy. "Send me the new exhibits. We're adding trespass and invasion of privacy to the counterclaim today. And Ethan? Install those trail cams I told you about. Motion triggered, high res, aimed at every entry point." I spent the afternoon mounting 4 cameras, 2 on the fence, 2 inside the barn, labeled discreetly so any snooper would have to work for it. Sarah watched me from the porch, arms crossed. "You think they'll come back?" I shrugged. "If they do, we'll have front row seats to their stupidity." The next week was pure tension wrapped in Texas heat. Every creak in the house sounded like footsteps. Every shadow on the driveway looked like Pam's pastel polo. I kept the folder growing, photos of the fence line, timestamps, deputy reports. Marcus filed the amended counterclaim and requested a temporary restraining order. "We're asking the judge to keep them 50 feet away from your property pending hearing," he said. Their own photos are basically a confession. The hearing date loomed like a storm cloud. I sat in the courthouse hallway in my cleanest flannel, palms sweating, while Marcus reviewed notes like a surgeon before the scalpel. Across the room Pam sat flanked by 2 board members, and their slick young attorney who looked like he'd been born in a tie. She caught my eye and gave that same practiced smile, the one that said, "I'm the victim here." I smiled back, slow, calm, the kind that comes when you know you've got the receipts. When our case was called, their attorney stood first, voice dripping confidence. "Your Honor, the association seeks enforcement of its architectural covenants. Mr. Brooks' solar installation disrupts the visual harmony of the community from the extended viewing corridor." The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, raised an eyebrow so high it nearly touched her hairline. "Extended viewing corridor? Is that a recorded easement, counselor?" He shuffled papers. "It's an aesthetic boundary adjustment, Your Honor." She leaned forward. "So not recorded. Not deeded. Just made up." The courtroom went so quiet I could hear Pam's acrylic nails tapping her clipboard. Marcus rose like he had all the time in the world. "Your Honor, Mr. Brooks' parcel predates the subdivision by 11 years. It's zoned agricultural. His deed contains 0 covenants, 0 easements, and 0 mention of Oak Ridge Estates. The solar array is fully permitted and protected under Texas Solar Access statutes. The association's claim is legally imaginary. He slid the plat map across. Red lines showed exactly where their world ended at my fence. The judge studied it, then turned back to their side. Show me where the defendant's deed references your CC and RS. Silence. More shuffling. We don't believe it does, but the visual impact. She cut him off. Visual impact isn't jurisdiction, counselor. Motion to dismiss is taken under advisement. I'm inclined to agree with the defendant. Pam's face went the color of cheap foundation. She whispered furiously to her attorney while the gavel banged. Outside on the courthouse steps, Marcus gave me the first real smile I'd seen from him. We drew first blood. Keep the cameras rolling. They'll get desperate now. He was right. That very night the red light on my barn camera blinked. I checked the feed at 2:14 a.m. Two figures in dark hoodies, flashlights bobbing. One was shorter, clipboard in hand, Pam. The other looked like her vice president sidekick. They slipped through a gap in the hedge, tugged at the barn door, snapped photos through the window. I watched the whole thing in real time, heart hammering, but I didn't run out there. Marcus's voice echoed in my head. Document. Don't confront. So I saved every frame, backed it up to the cloud, and waited for sunrise. By 9 a.m., Marcus had the footage and was drafting an emergency motion for the restraining order. This is gold, he said. Criminal trespass on video. We're asking for immediate relief and adding the sheriff's office to the service list. The judge signed it the same afternoon. 14 days, no notice, sheriff delivery required. When the deputy dropped the order at Pam's McMansion the next morning, the neighborhood Facebook group exploded. Someone leaked a screenshot of the order. Comments poured in. Wait, she was in his barn? This is insane. The first cracks in her perfect little empire were showing. I slept better that night than I had in months. But the real satisfaction was still coming. The temporary order hit like a velvet hammer. No more letters. No more late-night visitors. The management company suddenly resigned from the account. Pam's insurance carrier started asking uncomfortable questions about unauthorized board conduct. Marcus forwarded me the email thread with a single line. They're sweating. I printed the restraining order, laminated it, and hung it on the fence facing their side. Pure petty, but God, it felt good. Then I did something they never expected. I showed up at their monthly board meeting. Walked into the pastel clubhouse still smelling like hay and diesel, work boots echoing on the tile. Heads turned. Whispers rippled. Pam froze mid-sentence when she saw me, her perfect smile cracking like cheap porcelain. Mr. Brooks, she said, voice syrupy. This is a private meeting for members only. I held up a copy of their own lawsuit, the one that had listed me as Lot 47B community member. Funny, I said loud enough for the whole room, because you sued me as a member. Figured I should come do my civic duty. A few people actually chuckled. One older lady in the back muttered, "He's got a point." I laid the lawsuit on the table so everyone could see my name in bold. You spent members' dues suing a guy who isn't even in your HOA. Either I'm a member and I get to vote, or you just wasted everyone's money attacking a private citizen. Which is it? Pam's face went from pink to purple. The treasurer, a quiet woman named Linda, leaned forward and asked the question that broke the room. Pam, did we really sue a non-member? The silence that followed was delicious. I tipped my hat. All I ever wanted was to be left alone. Keep your rules on your side of the fence. I'll keep my panels on mine. Then I walked out to scattered applause and one very loud about time. Word spread faster than Pam's gossip. Within days, 3 board members resigned. The insurance company froze coverage. The new interim board sent me a certified apology letter that read like it had been written through gritted teeth. We acknowledge your property is not, and has never been part of Oak Ridge Estates. All enforcement actions were made in error. They mailed it to every household. Neighbors started waving when I drove past. One even brought over a 6-pack and muttered, "Sorry about Pam. She's intense." But the real cherry on top came 6 weeks later. The sheriff's detective called me at breakfast. "Mr. Brooks, we've identified the individual in your camera footage. Pamela Ellison. Charges: criminal trespass, harassment, and conspiracy to commit burglary. I nearly dropped my coffee. Turns out Pam had delegated the barn photos to her vice president and told him it was official board business. The jury didn't buy the civic duty defense. Guilty on all counts. 6 months county jail, probation, and a 10-year ban from holding any HOA office in the county. I sat on my porch that evening watching the panels glow gold in the sunset. Sarah handed me a beer and clinked hers against mine. To the man who took down the Queen of Beige with a trail cam and a good lawyer. I laughed real deep, the kind that comes when justice finally shows up wearing muddy boots. The new HOA board put up bright yellow signs along the shared fence. Private property. HOA boundary ends here. Every time I see them I smile. The Beige Empire didn't fall in flames. It died quietly, one resignation letter at a time, strangled by its own paperwork. And all it took was one guy who refused to let a clipboard rewrite his deed. So here's the question I want you to answer honestly in the comments. True or false, was I the villain for fighting back with cameras and lawyers? Or was the real criminal the HOA Karen who thought her rules gave her the right to walk into a man's barn and call it community service? Drop your verdict below. Because the next time an HOA tries to claim your sunlight, you'll know exactly what to do. See you in the next one.